There is a very painful kind of frustration that almost every English learner knows. You are listening to someone speak, and you understand them. You are watching a video, and you understand almost every sentence. You are reading a book, and the words feel familiar. Then someone turns to you and asks one simple question, and suddenly your mind goes empty. The words you knew 10 seconds ago disappear. The grammar you studied for years hides somewhere in the back of your brain. You know what you want to say, but you cannot reach it fast enough. And in that moment, you start believing something dangerous. You start believing that your English is bad. But what if that is not the real problem? What if your English is not weak? What if your English is simply stuck? What if thousands of words, phrases, sentence patterns, and expressions are already sitting inside your mind, but your brain has never been trained to retrieve them quickly enough when real conversation begins? That changes everything. Because if the problem is lack of knowledge, you need to learn more. But if the problem is slow access, then learning more is not the solution. Training access is. Think about this. A library can contain 1,000,000 books. But if you cannot find the right book when you need it, the size of the library does not help you. Your English mind can work the same way. You may have studied for 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years. You may know more vocabulary than someone who speaks more confidently than you. You may understand complicated grammar rules that native speakers could not explain. But speaking is not a test of how much English exists inside your brain. Speaking is a test of how quickly your brain can reach what is already there. And that is the journey we are going to begin today. Not another journey of collecting more words. Not another journey of memorizing rules you will forget next week. A different journey. A journey from knowing English to accessing English. From translating to responding. From hesitation to movement. From fear to familiarity. Your English may already be far better than you think. You simply need to teach your brain how to bring it forward. Lesson 1. Stop measuring your English by how fast you speak. One of the biggest mistakes English learners make is this. They confuse speed with ability. They hear someone answering quickly and think, that person is fluent. Then they hear themselves pausing, searching, restarting, and correcting, and they think, I am terrible at English. But speed alone tells you very little. A person can speak quickly and still say very little. Another person can speak slowly and communicate something meaningful, intelligent, and clear. The real problem begins when you use speed as evidence against yourself. You pause for 3 seconds and immediately become embarrassed. You forget one word and suddenly decide that your English is weak. You make one mistake and begin questioning years of learning. This pressure creates a second problem. The more urgently you try to speak fast, the slower your brain becomes. Why? Because your attention splits. One part of your mind is trying to communicate. Another part is monitoring grammar. Another part is worrying about pronunciation. Another part is asking, do I sound stupid? Another part is translating from your first language. Another part is thinking about how the other person is judging you. Your brain is trying to perform 6 jobs at the same time. Of course you freeze. That freeze does not prove that you have no English. It proves that your working memory is overloaded. This is why the first step is not speed. The first step is permission. Permission to speak before your sentence is perfect. Permission to pause. Permission to use a simpler word. Permission to restart. Permission to sound like a learner while becoming a speaker. Imagine you want to say, I was extremely disappointed because the meeting was postponed at the last minute. But your brain cannot access disappointed, postponed, or at the last minute. Most learners stop. They search. They panic. They try to build the perfect sentence. Instead, say something easier. I was really unhappy because they changed the meeting very late. Is it the most elegant sentence in the world? No. But did you communicate? Yes. That is speaking. And this matters because every time you choose communication over perfection, you train retrieval. You teach your brain, when I need English, I use what I can reach. That is the opposite of freezing. Fluent speakers are not fluent because they always know the perfect word. They are fluent because they keep moving when the perfect word does not arrive. They replace it, they explain it, they simplify it, they go around it. This skill is called circumlocution. But you do not need to remember that word. You only need to remember the principle. Do not let one missing word destroy an entire conversation. If you forget umbrella, say the thing you use when it rains. If you forget appointment, say the time I arranged to meet the doctor. If you forget exhausted, say very, very tired. The goal is not to prove that you know English. The goal is to use English. And strangely, the moment you stop trying to prove yourself, your speech often becomes faster because pressure decreases. Your brain becomes available again. So from today, change the question. Do not ask, why can't I speak faster? Ask, can I keep communicating even when I cannot find the perfect words? That is a much more powerful measure of progress because speed comes later. Movement comes first. Lesson 2. Your passive English is much bigger than your active English. There are two different English systems living inside you. The English you recognize and the English you can produce. These are not the same thing. You may recognize the phrase, "That makes sense," immediately when someone says it. But when you want to respond in conversation, perhaps you say nothing. You may understand the phrase, "I'm not used to it." But when your turn comes, your brain produces, "This is not my habit." You may understand, "I couldn't agree more." But when you want to express agreement, you only say, "Yes." This is not failure. It is the difference between passive knowledge and active knowledge. Passive English is everything your brain can understand when it sees or hears it. Active English is what your brain can retrieve and produce without outside help. For most learners, passive English is much larger. And this is actually good news, because it means you do not need to build everything from zero. You already have material. Your job is to activate it. Think of it like a room full of lights. The electricity is already connected. You do not need to rebuild the house. You need to switch the lights on. So how do you activate passive English? Not by reading the phrase 100 times, not by highlighting it beautifully in a notebook, not by saying, "I know this." You activate English by forcing retrieval. You see the meaning, and you produce the phrase. You imagine the situation, and you say the sentence. You hear a question, and you answer before looking at a model answer. Let us take one simple phrase, "It depends." You probably understand it, but do you use it naturally? Train it. Do you like working from home? It depends. I like the flexibility, but sometimes I miss being around people. Is English difficult? It depends. Reading is easier for me than speaking. Should everyone study abroad? It depends on the person. Now that phrase begins to move from recognition to retrieval. Take another phrase. I haven't decided yet. Use it in 5 situations. What are you doing this weekend? I haven't decided yet. Are you buying that laptop? I haven't decided yet. Will you apply for the job? I haven't decided yet. The brain learns through use. And here is something important. Activation requires repetition, but not mindless repetition. If you repeat one sentence 20 times with no context, your mouth may remember the sound. But if you use the same phrase in 5 different situations, your brain learns when and why to retrieve it. That is much more powerful. So instead of collecting 50 new expressions every day, choose 5 expressions you already understand and make them active. Ask yourself, where could I use this? What question would make me say this? What story from my own life could include this phrase? Can I say it without looking? Can I use it tomorrow in a real conversation? This is how stuck English begins moving. And there is another reason this works. Personal memories are easier to retrieve than abstract textbook examples. If your textbook says, John postponed his journey due to inclement weather, your brain has very little emotional connection to that sentence. But if you say, I had to cancel my trip because my son was sick, the sentence belongs to your life. Your brain cares about it. It remembers it. Use your English to describe your world. Talk about your job, your family, your fears, your plans, your habits, your mistakes, your favorite food, your worst travel experience, your goals for the next 5 years. You already know the content because the content is your life. Now you only have to train the English. When learners tell me, I know so much English, but I cannot speak, I often want to say, good, then stop filling the warehouse. Start opening the boxes. Your English is not empty. It is waiting to be activated. Lesson 3. Stop translating full sentences before you speak. Translation is not evil. It is a natural tool. When you first learn another language, your first language helps you understand meaning. The problem begins when translation becomes the bridge you are forced to cross before every sentence. Someone asks you, what did you do yesterday? First, you create the answer in your own language. Then you search for the English words. Then you check the grammar. Then you rearrange the sentence. Then you finally speak. By the time the answer is ready, the conversation has already moved forward. This is why many learners say, I know the answer, but I am too slow. The problem is not always English. Sometimes the problem is the route. You are taking the longest road to the sentence. The solution is not to stop translating overnight. That advice sounds simple, but it is unrealistic. Your brain has used your first language for decades. You cannot order it to disappear. Instead, shorten the distance. Train your brain to connect common situations directly to common English responses. If someone says, how was your weekend? You should not need to build a completely new sentence every time. Create response patterns. It was pretty good. It was busy because. Honestly, I didn't do much. These are sentence frames. And sentence frames are powerful because they reduce the number of decisions your brain must make. You are no longer creating language from nothing. You are filling a familiar structure. Think about how you speak your first language. You do not invent every sentence from zero. You use thousands of patterns you have heard and repeated all your life. Do you want? I don't think. The problem is, I'm not sure if. It reminds me of. As far as I know, these are chunks. Fluent speech is built from chunks far more than most learners realize. You do not need to retrieve every individual word. You retrieve groups of words together. This makes speech faster. Instead of building I plus do plus not plus really plus think plus that plus is plus a plus good plus idea, your brain learns, I don't really think that's a good idea. One unit, one familiar sound, one pattern, and because the pattern is automatic, your attention becomes free to focus on meaning. Start collecting useful chunks, not fancy vocabulary. For example, the thing is, what I mean is, I'm trying to say, from my experience, I'm not completely sure, but one reason could be, to be honest, at the same time. It turned out that, the good thing is, these phrases hold conversations together. They give your brain time. They make your speech sound connected. They help you keep going. Here is a simple practice. Choose one everyday topic. For example, work. Speak for 2 minutes using sentence frames. I work in. What I like about my job is. The difficult part is. One thing I've learned is. In the future, I'd like to. Do not memorize the whole speech. Memorize the doorways. Then walk through them with your own ideas. The goal is to reduce creation and increase retrieval. Because speaking is not an essay writing competition, you do not have 10 minutes to design every sentence. Real conversation requires fast, imperfect decisions. And this is something many intelligent learners struggle with. The more educated you are, sometimes the more complicated you make your sentences. You want to sound sophisticated. You want the exact word. You want beautiful grammar. But spoken language does not need to sound like an academic paper. Simple English spoken with confidence is stronger than complicated English trapped inside your head. If you can say, "I don't like this because it takes too much time," say it. Do not stay silent while searching for, "I find this process unnecessarily time-consuming." The second sentence is fine. But if it arrives 20 seconds too late, it is not useful in conversation. English is not only knowledge. English is timing. And timing improves when your brain starts thinking in patterns, instead of translating full sentences. Lesson 4. Train retrieval, not recognition. This lesson may be the most important one in the entire journey. Most English study feels productive because recognition feels easy. You read a vocabulary list. You look at the word improve. You think, "Yes, I know that." You see although. "Yes, I know that." You see eventually. "Yes, I know that." But recognizing a word is not the same as being able to retrieve it in real time. Recognition asks, "Do you understand this when it is in front of you?" Retrieval asks, "Can you produce it when nothing is in front of you?" Speaking depends on retrieval. This is why you can complete a grammar exercise perfectly and still struggle in conversation. The exercise gives you clues. Conversation gives you nothing. The sentence is not written on the page. The options are not A, B, C, and D. Nobody tells you which tense to use. You have to find the language yourself. So your practice must include moments where your brain has to search. That search is not a sign that the practice is failing. The search is the practice. Imagine you are training at the gym. If you lift a weight that requires no effort, you are moving, but you are not challenging the muscle enough to adapt. Retrieval works similarly. If you always look at the answer, your brain never learns to reach for it. Try this instead. Write 10 questions you hear often. What do you do? Where are you from? What are you working on these days? What do you usually do on weekends? Why are you learning English? What kind of movies do you like? Have you ever traveled abroad? What are you trying to improve right now? What is something you are proud of? What would you like to do next year? Now put the paper away. Answer them aloud, not in your head, aloud. Speaking inside your mind is easier because pronunciation, timing, and mouth movement are removed. Your goal is spoken retrieval, then answer the same questions again tomorrow. Do not try to say exactly the same words. Let the answer change naturally. This repetition creates speed, not because you memorize a speech, because the topic becomes familiar. Your brain builds pathways. The first time you answer, "Why are you learning English?" you may struggle. "I learn English because my work, I want more opportunities and speak with people." Good. That is the beginning. The 10th time you answer that question over several days, your brain may say, "I'm learning English mainly because I want better opportunities at work, but I also want to feel comfortable speaking with people from different countries." What changed? Did you learn 50 new grammar rules? No. Your brain became faster at reaching language connected to that idea. That is exactly what fluency training should do. Another powerful method is retelling. Watch a short video in English, 30 seconds, 1 minute, then close it. Explain what happened using your own words. Do not repeat every sentence. Do not chase perfection. Retrieve meaning. Maybe you watched someone explain why sleep is important. Close the video and say, The main idea was that sleep affects your memory and your mood. The speaker also said that people often think they can catch up later, but the body does not always work that way. That exercise trains listening, memory, sentence creation, and retrieval at the same time, and it reveals your gaps. Perhaps you keep wanting to say affect, but you forget it. Good. Now that word has a reason to become active. Vocabulary learned because you needed it is often more memorable than vocabulary learned because it appeared on page 47 of a textbook. Your brain remembers urgency. So create situations that demand language. Record yourself explaining, retell stories, answer questions, describe pictures from memory, summarize articles without looking, explain how to cook something, teach an imaginary student how to use your phone, give your opinion about a simple topic, agree, disagree, compare, predict, recommend. All of these force retrievals. If you do this every day, something changes. The gap between thought and speech begins to shrink. You stop feeling like every sentence is hidden behind a locked door. The door starts opening faster. That is not magic. That is training. Lesson 5. Build an automatic core before chasing advanced English. Many learners are trying to decorate a house that still needs stronger stairs. They keep learning impressive vocabulary. They save phrases like a paradigm shift, multifaceted, intrinsically motivated, a double-edged sword. Notwithstanding the circumstances, there is nothing wrong with advanced English. But if you still hesitate when saying, I went, I need, I think, I don't know, I've been, I'm trying, and I used to, then advanced vocabulary should not be your main priority. Fluency grows around a small core of extremely common language. Think about your daily conversations. You repeatedly talk about what you did, what you are doing, what you want, what you need, what you think, what happened, what might happen, what you like, what you do not like, what someone said, what you are trying to change, what you plan to do. These ideas do not require 10,000 words. They require automatic control of a few hundred high-frequency words and patterns. The word get, for example, is more useful in daily speech than many advanced words. I got home late. I didn't get the message. I'm getting tired. Where did you get that? I need to get ready. It's getting better. What are you trying to get? One simple word, many functions. Or take your time. It takes an hour. I took a break. Take a look. I'll take care of it. I need to take this seriously. This is the English you need to access without effort. Not because simple English is superior, but because automatic simple English becomes the foundation for advanced English. A pianist does not become great by learning difficult songs while ignoring basic scales. A football player does not become great by studying complicated tactics while being unable to control the ball. Automatic fundamentals create freedom. So build your automatic core. Choose 50 sentence patterns you want your mouth to know deeply. For example, I'm trying to, I used to, I'm used to, I'm not used to, I've been thinking about, I ended up, I was supposed to, I didn't mean to, I'm looking forward to, I'd rather, I don't mind, it depends on, the reason is, what happened was, I'm not sure whether, I wish I could, if I had more time. One thing I've noticed is, the more I haven't had a chance to, do not study them once, live with them, use them for weeks, attach them to your life. I've been thinking about changing my routine. I was supposed to call my friend yesterday. I haven't had a chance to finish the book. One thing I've noticed is that I speak better when I relax. The more I practice aloud, the easier it becomes. These patterns become mental shortcuts, and shortcuts are exactly what your brain needs during fast conversation. Here is where many learners become impatient. They say, but I already know these structures. Yes, knowing is not the question. Can you use them instantly? If I wake you at 6 in the morning and ask, what were you supposed to do yesterday but forgot? Can your mouth answer without building the grammar step by step? That is automaticity. And automaticity can feel boring to build because you are practicing things you already recognize. But athletes repeat basic movements for a reason. Musicians repeat scales for a reason. Speakers repeat patterns for a reason. The goal is not novelty. The goal is availability. You do not need English that impresses you when you read it. You need English that appears when you need it. Lesson 6. Use pressure in small doses. There is a strange problem in language learning. If you only practice comfortably, real conversation can feel terrifying. But if you create too much pressure too early, you freeze and lose confidence. So you need the right amount of pressure. Small doses. Think about learning to drive. You do not begin on the busiest highway during rush hour. You start somewhere controlled. But you also do not spend 3 years driving only in an empty parking lot. At some point, the environment must become more realistic. English works the same way. Private practice is the parking lot. Real conversation is the road. Your goal is to build bridges between them. One bridge is timed speaking. Choose a simple topic. Set a timer for 60 seconds. Speak until the timer ends. Do not stop because of mistakes. Do not restart the sentence 5 times. Keep moving. Topic: my morning routine. I usually wake up around 7. The first thing I do is check my phone, which I know is probably not a good habit. Then I get out of bed, wash my face and make tea. If you forget a word, explain it. If the sentence becomes messy, finish it anyway. The timer creates light pressure. Your brain learns to prioritize communication. Another bridge is the 3-second response rule. Ask yourself a question. You have 3 seconds to begin answering. Not to finish, only to begin. What is something you want to improve this year? 3, 2, 1. I really want to improve my speaking because you are training the start. Why is this important? Because hesitation often grows in the first few seconds. You wait for the perfect opening sentence. Then anxiety enters. Then translation begins. Then the moment becomes heavier. Instead, begin with a simple frame. I think. For me. Honestly. One thing is, I'd say, probably. The first words create momentum. And momentum helps the rest of the sentence appear. Another exercise is shadow response training. Listen to an interview. Pause after each question. Answer before the person in the video answers. If the interviewer asks, what was the hardest part of starting your career? Pause. Answer from your own life. The hardest part for me was not knowing whether I was making the right decisions. Then play the original answer. This makes English interactive instead of passive. You stop being only a listener. You become a participant. And eventually, talk to real people. You need real unpredictability. No app can fully reproduce the feeling of another human being waiting for your answer. But do not make every conversation a performance. Your goal is not to prove that you are fluent. Your goal is to collect repetitions. 10 minutes with a speaking partner can be more valuable than another hour of passive study. After the conversation, do not ask, how many mistakes did I make? Ask better questions. Where did I freeze? What did I want to say but could not say? Which phrases did I use successfully? Which question was difficult? What sentence would I like to answer better next time? Then train those exact moments. This is how real conversation becomes your teacher. Suppose someone asks, what do you think about remote work? You struggle. Later, do not simply feel embarrassed. Turn the difficulty into training. Record 3 answers. Short answer. I like it because it saves time. Medium answer. I like remote work because I don't have to commute, but I think it can feel isolating sometimes. Long answer. I think remote work is useful when people have the discipline to manage their time. For me, the biggest advantage is avoiding the commute, but I also understand why some people prefer being around colleagues. Now, if that topic appears again, your brain has a pathway. This is how pressure becomes useful, not punishment. Information. Every difficult conversation shows you what needs activation. Lesson 7. Stop waiting to feel fluent before you speak. There is one final trap that keeps English stuck for years. The belief that one day, after enough study, you will finally feel ready. One day your grammar will be perfect. One day your vocabulary will be big enough. One day you will stop feeling nervous. One day English will suddenly feel natural, and then you will speak. But that day does not arrive before speaking. It arrives because of speaking. Confidence is not the entrance ticket. Confidence is the receipt. It is what you receive after your brain survives hundreds of imperfect conversations and learns, I can do this. You do not become ready and then begin. You begin, and slowly you become ready. Think about the first time you did anything difficult. The first day at a new job. The first presentation. The first time you traveled alone. The first time you used new technology. At the beginning, awareness is high. Every movement feels deliberate. You think about everything. Then repetition changes the experience. What felt heavy becomes familiar. Speaking English needs the same process. You cannot think your way into automatic speech. You have to speak your way into it. And this means accepting an uncomfortable truth. For a while, your English will sound worse than the English inside your head. Inside your head, you can imagine perfect sentences. Outside your head, you pause, you forget, you pronounce something badly, you use the wrong tense, you repeat yourself. That gap can hurt your ego, especially if you are intelligent, especially if you are respected in your own language, especially if you can express complex ideas beautifully in your first language. In English, you may feel smaller, you may feel less intelligent, but you are not less intelligent. Your language access is simply less developed. Do not confuse reduced expression with reduced intelligence. A brilliant person speaking beginner English is still brilliant. They just do not yet have fast access to the language required to show everything they know. That is why courage matters. Not dramatic courage, daily courage. The courage to send the voice message. The courage to answer before you are sure. The courage to ask someone to repeat. The courage to say, I don't know the exact word, but what I mean is. The courage to speak in a meeting. The courage to continue after making a mistake. The courage to hear your own recorded voice and not delete it immediately. The courage to sound unfinished while you are growing. Every time you do this, your English moves from storage into use. And I want you to notice something. You do not need to activate all of English. You need to activate your English, the English that belongs to your life. If you work in sales, activate the language of customers, problems, prices, meetings, persuasion, and follow-up. If you are a student, activate the language of lectures, assignments, opinions, deadlines, and questions. If you are a parent, activate the language of routines, school, food, emotions, schedules, and family. If you travel, activate the language of airports, hotels, directions, restaurants, and small talk. Your goal is not to become a walking dictionary. Your goal is to become powerful in the situations you actually live. And when those situations become automatic, your world expands. Then you add more. This is how fluency grows in layers. Not all at once, not through one magical method, through thousands of small acts of retrieval. Let me give you a simple daily system. 10 minutes. That is all you need to begin. For the first 2 minutes, answer one everyday question aloud. Do not write first. Speak. For the next 2 minutes, Choose 3 useful phrases and make personal sentences with them. For the next 2 minutes, listen to a short clip and retell the main idea without looking. For the next 2 minutes, speak on a timer without stopping. For the last 2 minutes, listen to your recording and choose one thing to improve tomorrow. 10 minutes. But make those 10 minutes active. Your mouth must move, your brain must retrieve, your English must come out. Because the biggest difference between someone who knows English and someone who speaks English is often not intelligence, talent, or even vocabulary. It is access. One person has trained the road. The other person has only collected the cars. You may already have enough knowledge to communicate far better than you currently do. You may already know the grammar. You may already know the words. You may already understand most of what you hear. The missing piece may simply be speed of retrieval. And speed can be trained, not by rushing, by repeating, not by judging yourself, by using the language, not by waiting until you feel ready, by speaking before you feel ready. So the next time your mind goes blank, do not say, "My English is terrible." Say, "My brain is learning to retrieve." The next time you forget a word, do not stop. Explain it. The next time your sentence comes out imperfect, finish it. The next time you hear a phrase you understand but never use, make it yours. The next time someone asks you a question, begin before your inner critic has time to build a courtroom. You do not need another 100 words today. You need 10 words you can reach faster. You do not need another grammar book today. You need one structure you can use without fear. You do not need to sound like someone else. You need to sound more like yourself in English. And that may be closer than you think, because your English is not missing. Much of it is already there, waiting. Waiting behind hesitation, waiting behind translation, waiting behind perfectionism, waiting behind years of passive learning. Your task now is to bring it forward, one sentence at a time, one conversation at a time, one imperfect answer at a time. There will be days when you feel slow. Speak anyway. There will be days when you forget simple words. Speak anyway. There will be days when someone else sounds better than you. Speak anyway. There will be moments when you make a mistake and your mind tells you to become silent. Speak anyway, because every time you choose to speak, you strengthen the path. And one day, something beautiful happens. You answer a question without translating, then another. You tell a story without planning every sentence. You laugh in English before you realize you understood the joke. You disagree without searching for words. You explain an idea you once thought was too complicated. And after the conversation ends, you suddenly notice, I wasn't thinking about English. I was just speaking. That is the moment so many learners are chasing, but it does not arrive through chasing perfection. It arrives through building familiarity. Your brain stops treating English like an emergency. It starts treating English like a tool. And that is when the language begins to feel lighter. So do not underestimate what is already inside you. Do not look at your pauses and assume there is nothing behind them. There may be years of learning behind those pauses, years of listening, years of reading, years of vocabulary, years of grammar, years of effort. Your challenge now is not to become a different person. It is to create faster access to what you have already built. Your English may be better than you think. It may simply be stuck, and stuck does not mean broken. Stuck means movement is possible. Start moving it today.